All right. Well, I want to first of all thank everybody for making it this morning and virtually making it, I should say. So, just kind of our normal. Hey, everybody, leave their cell phones on this meeting because we're not going to bother each other. But the one thing I think to kind of let everybody remind everybody when we're doing the virtual meetings, it is important that we get the first and second motions identified so Regina can make good, accurate minutes. So with that, I'm going to initially call the meeting to order, and I've been informed that we do have a quorum, so we will be able to proceed. And the first item on our agenda would be the approve the minutes from November the 12th, 2024 minutes. So I need a motion to accept or amend, and a motion and a second. So I'm going to throw it out there. I see one hand up for a motion. I'm assuming Steve Severs, and we're waiting for a second. And I got Dan Corey with a second. So I have a motion and a second. And I'm now going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye or raise their hand virtually or literally. And opposed, we would have a like sign also, raising of a hand. And seeing, I see one hand raised. Olivia Tusi is couple saying, so either have a question or an opposition to the minutes. Either way, we can inform discussion or move on, whichever. Oh, it was okay. No, never mind. It was just a little. It was a late high five. All right. So our second agenda for the is to November Executive Committee minutes. You've all been provided those in advance. So if there are any questions about those, we would certainly entertain those. But that is for information only, as well as we have the November December transportation planning reports have also been provided. Again, that's to overview what staff has accomplished in the last couple of months, and that's provided for information only also. So up now, we're moving to item number 4 on the agenda, which is we have Andy Reeser, OKI staff, to be giving an update on the capital fund balances. And this is for information only, but now I'll turn it over to Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, this is my annual report to you on our capital fund balances. If you go to the next slide, Regina. Yeah, so this is our annual allocation to OKI based on our population in Ohio. I'll talk about Ohio first. CMAQ in Ohio is administered statewide among the 8 largest MPOs, but we do track our historical allocation, which is about 13.9 million for CMAQ. For carbon reduction program, which is we've dedicated that to EV charging, it's about 2.8 million annually. STBG about 26 million, and TA funds 2.7 million. Next slide, please. So looking specifically at OKI CMAQ, the red line here, and all these slides will be the same. The red line is our annual allocation. If it wasn't a statewide program, but we do try to track that as if it was just our historical allocation. The green column is our annual allocation plus or minus any carryover or deficit from the previous year. This is the amount we have available to spend. The blue column represents the amount programmed in the TIP for that fiscal year, and the fiscal year is always the state fiscal year, which starts July 1. So you can see here for CMAQ, we are under programmed by about 7 million in fiscal year 25 and over programmed in fiscal year 26 by about 6 million. So roughly balanced over those 2 years. And actually, this doesn't look too bad for CMAQ. We're pretty much where we're supposed to be. We have a little bit of extra funds in 27 and 28 for CMAQ. Next slide, please. For STBG, the story's a little bit different. We're significantly under-programmed in FY25 to the tune of about 30 million. So you can see the green bar there. Up almost, we have a little over 45 million available, and we only have about 15 million programmed. And then FY26, we're also a bit under programmed, 12 million. So we have a lot of money short term, and it looks a little bit better for FY27 and 28. We had quite a bit of several large projects get moved out of 25 and pushed into 26 or 27. And we also have some additional funds available to us from the bipartisan infrastructure law. Next slide, please. Looking at TA, we also have a large amount of carryover going into this year, under programmed by about 2.7 million in fiscal year 25 and about 1 million in 26. Of course, the scale is a little bit different there on the left, significantly less dollars for TA, but still under program more than we like in 25. Next slide, please. For a carbon reduction program, we reserve this program for EV charging projects. Most of these projects will be happening in FY26 in Ohio. We are anticipating about 2.8 million left after FY26. We may program that amount into existing transit projects, and that will free up some STBG funds for other things we'd like to program. We are anticipating the carbon reduction program to go away after fiscal year 26. It was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, which expires after fiscal year 26. But if it does continue, we'll program it for any eligible project for carbon reduction funds, such as transit or bike ped or possibly EV charging. Next, please. Next, we'll look at our capital funds in Kentucky. This is our annual allocation. Carbon reduction program, about 1.1 million for our 3 Kentucky counties. S&K, which is STBG for Northern Kentucky, we have about 9.8 million annually, and TA, or they call it TAP in Kentucky, a little over 1 million. Next, please. For S&K, so the Kentucky graph looks a little bit different because many projects originally programmed in Kentucky in previous years have not yet received federal authorization, and then we push those into FY25. So we have about 27 million available in FY25 if everything is sold. We have 27 million available, about 33 million programmed. So we don't expect everything to sell this year, so we're not concerned too much with that deficit. And but overall, S&K is rather balanced throughout the life of the TIP, which goes through FY28. Next slide, please. Our TA or TAP program with carryover, we have about 4.3 million available in FY25 with 4.2 million programmed, and we are balanced throughout the life of the TIP. The current TIP goes through 27. The new TIP that we're working on now is the 26 to 29 TIP. Just for your information. Next slide is the carbon reduction program. For the carbon reduction program in Ohio, or in Kentucky, excuse me, we have 4.3 million available in FY25, and we have about 4 million programmed. We expect about 1.5 million left in Kentucky under the CRP program, and we plan to invest any extra money there into any CRP eligible projects, most likely transit, and that will free up S&K funds for other projects. Next slide, please. So a little word about carryover. ODOT has a carryover target of less than 25% of our annual allocation for STBG and TA, and amounts in Ohio that exceed our 25% carryover limit may be subject to a recall. We can do a waiver for those anytime we do have a carryover more than 25%. ODOT usually honors that waiver request, but just know that it could be subject to recall where it could be redistributed to other areas of the state, and we really don't want that to happen. KYTC, there's no formal policy on carryover. However, they do have periodic reviews, make sure there's no lapsing funds throughout the state or throughout the region, and we do participate in that and have them try to make sure we have no lapsing funds anywhere in our programs. So strategies to reduce carryover. We look to move projects or phases between fiscal years. We can also do loans between MPOs. We often do that if there's another MPO, especially in Ohio, that needs our funds, or if we need extra funds, we can swap. We can do loans between MPOs. We also can swap funding types in certain situations if it's project is eligible for both CMAQ and STBG. We can swap those funds to try to balance things out a little bit better. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, in Ohio, fiscal year 25, which is our current fiscal year, we do have a large excess carryover. And looking at a combined 25 and FY26, we're about 12 million under programmed for STBG in Ohio. CMAQ, we're looking pretty good. We're near the historical allocation amount, but we're looking at a rather large amount available going into this next prioritization cycle. Right now, we're projecting about 53 million available in Ohio. That's a combined STBG, CMAQ, and TA. And then in Kentucky, STBG and TA or TAP are overprogrammed in FY25, but some projects are not likely to meet the schedule, but they are balanced throughout the life of the TIP. And we expect about 12 million to be available in SNK and TAP for the next prioritization cycle, which begins in March. And then just, of course, in Indiana, we have no new allocation of capital funds. So, and that's been the case since they redefined the urban area, and Indiana is no longer part of our urban area, so we don't have access to the capital funds for Dearborn County. So that concludes my little summary. Adam, I don't know if you want to do questions.
Yeah, open it up for, I have no questions, but open it up for questions from the group.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
This is Wade Johnson. I was just curious about that last statement about Indiana. Does that mean that there are no funds, federal funds coming in for Indiana in the foreseeable future?
There are no federal funds for Dearborn, Indiana that come through OKI. So the locals in Dearborn County need to apply through NDOT to get those funds.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Corey's got a question also.
Yeah, real quick, Andy, on projects that are programmed for, say, fiscal 27, where, we just went through the round and there were projects that were shorted. Do you anticipate making the funds that were under programmed available to those projects to basically make those projects whole, or what do you anticipate doing with the under programmed amount?
Corey, I don't think there was a project that we
No,
cut back
the
except for
county,
transit.
we had the county roundabout project that we're a sort of a partner on, and I don't know if Jeremy's on the call or not, but the funding amount was reduced from the original ask on that to the tune of about
I do recall that. That was a different situation. That was a situation where our policy was to allow for a certain amount for contingency, and I think the estimate was above that amount.
Okay.
So we reduced it. That
makes sense.
That was a different issue.
All right. Thanks.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, this is Sam Perry. I was just had a similar question. If the 12 million that was under program means that there's going to be a call for moving some phases to, the current upcoming year or not, if Andy could speak to that.
Yeah, we're definitely open to anything you want to move up, Sam. So
thank you. Appreciate it.
Additional one more hand raised. Is that a latent hand there? Nope. Okay. I think we're seeing no additional questions. I think we'll move on next to Andy's going to provide an overview of attendance in the last cycle.
Yep. So I have one slide here. So every January we provide the previous year ICC attendance sheets and a summary to the board. This is a chart showing the attendance of ICC meetings since 2015. In 2024, we averaged 38 members in attendance over the 9 meetings, with 62 members currently on the ICC roster. The good news is this is the highest attendance since 2020. 2020 was the year, however, when we had many of our meetings being virtual, but still a positive direction, and we'll provide this graph as well as the attendance sheets to the board on Thursday.
Great. Thank you. So now we're going to, I guess there are probably no questions about attendance, but next move on to Bob Keeler, who's going to, the Deputy Executive Director, who's going to review and discuss OKI's prioritization process. Bob, and this is for information only, by the way.
Thank you, Adam. Good morning, everyone. Today's topic is the project prioritization process. We sent a copy of the presentation in the mail out, so I hope you had a chance to look at it because there's a lot of stuff we need to talk about in there. Every year we go through this and review the process to see how we can make it better. Today we want to get your thoughts on some of the things we'll present. So it's just for discussion only, and I hope that discussion will be fruitful and enable us to come back next month and seek your official concurrence. One thing we learned from the last cycle is that the committee wants more involvement, more lead time to review changes, and easier access to applications to review ahead of time. So that will be our focus for this round and for going forward as well. Next, please. Here's the agenda for this discussion. And as you see there, it's got an overview, and then we'll go through the proposed changes and hit the next steps. Next. First, a little background. Staff is presenting potential changes to the OKI project prioritization process, and this involves the Surface Transportation Block Grants, STBG, CMAQ, and Transportation Alternatives. We have some updates, we have some improvements, and we have an introduction of a potential pilot resurfacing program that I'll talk about in detail later. Next, please. We know we need to make some improvements to the application itself. We heard that, and we've kind of known through the last couple cycles that one, it's not easy to print, so we'll do some reformatting and fix that. We will require that all the fields have a response in them so that people don't accidentally leave anything blank. And the certifications page is an important one, and we'll need to require a yes on all the questions on that page to go forward. Next, please. Okay, some proposed process changes. If adopted in February by the ICC, we will not award new funding to any applicant that has 3 or more OKI funded projects that have slipped past their original program construction year. You can still apply because we'll have a short grace period until September 1st. So like through the summer, if you can hurry up and get that project programmed for construction, get all your plans complete, so on and so forth, will allow the application to go forward. You may recall we introduced this possibility last year, and the reason behind that was to incentivize more timely project delivery. As you saw in Andy's presentation, we really have a significant amount of carryover, so we want to do better at that. And we want to get those projects built to benefit our communities more quickly. The second significant proposed change is to reduce the maximum award for Ohio STBG from $8 million to $6 million and SNK from $6.5 to $5 million. And finally, you want to introduce a pilot resurfacing program. Next, please. I want to back up just a little bit and provide a summary of how the program, next please, how the program has fared over the last 5 cycles. Next, please. Here's a summary of awards by mode, showing the number, the total cost, and the average award by mode, just to give a sense on how our funds have been distributed. As you see there, we have funded 120 projects, infusing almost $264 million into our communities. On average, transit has been the largest award per project of over $4.5 million, followed by roadway at just under 2.7 million and bike ped at 1.26 million. This also, by the way, includes Ohio CMAQ funds. Next, please. Okay, here's a graph of all the STBG only funded projects from 2020 through 2024. In 2020 and 21, you may recall that the max amount was 6 million in Ohio and 5 in Kentucky, and then we raised that to 8 and 6.5 respectively, Ohio and Kentucky, and that was in effect for the years 22, 23, and 24. So there's a pretty good distribution, both by project cost and by mode, as you see there. You might have to squint a little bit, sorry. There's a lot of projects in there. But essentially that's what our allocations have looked like over the last 5 years. Next, please. I dug into the numbers quite a bit, and analysis of the last 3 STBG funding cycles when the max was 8 million indicates that the number of projects, additional projects that we could probably fund by returning the max to 6 and 5 would be an average of 1 to 2 projects per year. If we'd agree, excuse me, if we agree on reducing the max award that I mentioned earlier, instead of moving that back into a pool to fund an extra project or 2, we propose to use the savings to create a new program for repaving projects. This will help us address an ongoing and growing problem of project delays and increasing carryover. Our program is at risk, as was mentioned by Andy, when we have carryover. We're getting a lot of pressure, especially from ODOT, to reduce this carryover, and really have to buckle down and get some things programmed and moving forward. If we went with this approach, this pilot program would help us reduce that carryover and also develop a reservoir of projects as well, really as address a community need. I think we'll talk about that, or I know we'll talk about that in the next few slides. So I want to get your input on that. That's what I really wanted to say. Next slide, please. Okay, I think I've been using the word resurfacing and repaving. I use them interchangeably. This is a proposal, a pilot program that we propose to fund low-cost, simple resurfacing projects with a maximum project amount of $800,000. I want to get your thoughts on that later. This would be a competitive program with its own criteria, following the same timeline as STBG and TA, funded through the reduction that I mentioned earlier in the STBG funds. The proposal, 10 million in Ohio and 4 million in Kentucky. Good news is we have toll revenue credits in Ohio, so these Ohio projects would be 100% federally funded, so you wouldn't have any match. So that might pique some interest. We unfortunately don't have toll credits in Kentucky. The state itself keeps them for their own use. They used to be a little bit more liberal in the past. I don't blame them. They had their own needs. Of note, though, we need projects still to be functionally classified, no local roads, and they also will need to be within the urbanized boundary. Next slide, please. I already talked about that. Next slide, please. Thank you. This repaving pilot program, here's kind of a summary without as many words. Simple mill and fill type projects, 2 to 3 inch depth, pavement markers, maintenance of traffic, construction only. Those elements would not require great detail plans, maybe not even have requirements for plans, I'm not sure. We're thinking right now one application per eligible LPA on one roadway. I know that might be a challenge. And again, the amounts of 10 million in Ohio, 4 in Kentucky. And again, toll revenue credits available for our Ohio communities. Next, please. Okay, as I mentioned, consistent with all of our programs, this will be a competitive process. It will include modal factors and planning factors. These are the modal factors. Again, locations must be functionally classified roads and be within the urbanized area, just as it is with the STBG and the SNK. We think the most impactful for our communities may be collectors with ADTs in the 10 to 15,000 range, because we are a regional agency. This hits probably or maybe a sweet spot, carrying positive impact for a lot of travelers without being overly burdened in terms of design considerations and so forth. Pavement condition and roads serving fixed route transit will be considerations. So those are the modal factors. And here are the planning factors. History of project delivery, we never really want to get away from that. And environmental justice will be an element because that remains a focus area of the BIL. Next, please. Next, please. Sorry, I'm ahead of you, Regina. Okay, so here's where I want to have some discussion. Adam, I appreciate you guiding us through this conversation as I may need some help. Let me throw some questions out there. Should we proceed? Do you see this as a useful program? As you look at your own programs, would this fill a need? Is the 800,000 max per project a logical amount? Is one route reasonable? If not, how do we prioritize? I talked to Jeremy Evans back in December, and he seemed pretty excited about it. So Jeremy, if you're on the line, you assure me that these are projects that can be delivered quickly, and I assume that's probably the case for many of you out there. More complex road reconstruction would remain eligible in the STBG/SNK category. So it's not like we would be going away from that sort of thing. So I want to pause there and have a conversation about this if we could.
Absolutely. I know, I guess we had an initial comment early on from Rob. I don't know if that might be addressed first and get into this discussion. Rob, if you're still hanging on, do you have a question to start us off?
Sure, thanks. I wanted to go back to the history of project delivery, if you don't care, or if you want to have this discussion first.
I'm sorry, who's speaking? Well, who's speaking?
Rob Franksman from Boone County.
Thank you, Rob.
Up to you, Bob. Do you want to proceed with the resurfacing or go back?
Well, we can take care of that one. What's your question about that?
So just, I wanted to point out, I mean, it's not always the LPA that is behind on things. You know, I mean, obviously here in Kentucky, we have a pretty fair amount of projects here in Boone County, but oftentimes the reason we fall behind is just the process with the state and the transportation cabinet. A lot of times we're waiting on authorizations to happen on their end that can take, you know, upwards of 6 months per phase. I mean, going from, you know, just getting into the design and then moving into right of way and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm wondering if there can't be some sort of consideration there, a hybrid or something. I absolutely understand what you're trying to do to move the money faster, and I get that. We want to move it just as fast as you do, but I'm just hesitant. I don't know if we can't maybe have a penalty like we have right now, you know, up to 3 projects, and then if you have more than 3, potentially then not accept applications or not award funds after the fact. I mean, just on that, you know, chance that, again, the LPA isn't necessarily the holdup. I'd hate for, you know, not only us, obviously I'm advocating for my county, but I do think there's others in that situation too that are potentially being penalized when they're not the only factor there.
Hi, this is Laura Tenfeld from PDS. Would utility relocation be included in that, Rob? Do you guys have trouble with that as well?
Correct. If we have an actual utility phase, a lot of times the utilities are lumped into construction, so they're not as big of an issue. But on the front end, getting the design contract moving and those funds authorized is often a delay. Receiving environmental approval to go to a secondary stage of design, and then the right of way authorizations. I mean, between those 3, we can often often see a significant delay. And I mean, it's not necessarily our local folks or anything like that. I mean, I think it's just the machine of the transportation cabinet that is hard sometimes for all of us.
Yeah, we understand there's always a challenge, and my hesitation to respond in any particular fashion is that I don't want to become the referee. I'd rather have projects that came to us with a relatively high degree of success of moving forward quickly. And we have penalized projects in the past that I know weren't the LPA's fault, but we have to be just consistent for whatever or any reason. Everybody's going to have challenges for all projects, even some of these simple projects. So I'm hesitant. I've communicated with the cabinet. I'll have to press them a little bit more on getting environmental clearance. The one drastic approach could be that we only fund construction projects, no other phases. And I don't think you want that. And I don't want that either, because I want to have communities have access to resources to get their projects to the finish line. But I'm not sure that we can continue leaving projects just continue to float out there and never know when they're going to come to the finish line without any sort of penalties. All good people, all good intentions. So I don't know, but this is, I really appreciate this committee's input on that. And, if we say, well, we did the best we could, ODOT, take your money back. I don't know that that's a success either, or KYTC as well could be in the same boat.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate those comments. I wouldn't mind if it'd be helpful too if I could put together some data and maybe share it with you in the interim prior to the next meeting when you make final recommendations.
Yeah, have those in a status that we can share with the committee, I think would be helpful, Rob. Appreciate that.
And then, Bob, I had a quick question, jump in real quickly. So this would be an accumulative issue. So if your project, you can deliver in this, while you're in this 3 project envelope, as it were, and you deliver one, would that then kick you out of that envelope or not?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
So it's kind of it's almost like you've got to be carrying 3 delayed projects.
Yeah, if you can get below that, if you're only carrying 2 delayed, you still have penalties for those being delayed, but
right, no
we
more
can accept an application.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that. Thank you. I'm sorry to cut somebody. Oh yeah, we have another question here.
Yeah, Bob, I had a question on this. Would it be possible for you all to bring a list of the applicants who would currently be penalized? I think that would be helpful context to understand how many communities this would impact.
Yeah, I know Andy probably has those on the tip of his tongue. Boone County was one, and I can't remember the other 2. Andy, do you recall?
Yeah, Bob. Ellesmere was the other one. There's no LPAs in Ohio right now that would fit into that category.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Boone's been very successful in winning OKI funds. It's not like they haven't delivered. I don't want to throw shade on them, but they do have 3 at the moment that have missed their construction year.
All right, maybe turn conversations back to our repaving program recommendations. So open the floor to comments.
Adam, this is Summer Jones at OKI. There's a couple things in the chat, Bob, that I wanted to go over. Wade Johnston is asking for the complete streets points. Would OKI consider granting points to a roadway that includes a protected bikeway?
Repeat that, please.
For complete streets points, would OKI consider granting points to a roadway that includes a protected bikeway?
This is for the resurfacing, kind of extra bonus points for that.
Oh, for resurfacing. No.
Well, maybe.
We're going,
This is a pilot program. Why are we haven't finalized it yet, correct?
well, I haven't considered that,
Okay.
I guess is how I should have phrased it. If this committee thinks that's worth, I mean, the additional, if there's already pavement out there, let's say the pavement is 16 feet wide for each lane, and it just requires a repaving and a stripe, then I guess this committee would find that as a reasonable approach. To throw down another 4 feet of asphalt is not a simple process. And it would be eligible under SNK, but I wouldn't think I would advocate for that to be in the resurfacing program as a simple project.
Just to clarify, Bob, I'm just suggesting if you're awarding points for a route that has a fixed transit line on it, in the same vein, would you grant those 5 points or 3 points or something for a roadway that either includes a protected bikeway that would be resurfaced or would be adding a protected bikeway in like a complete streets type project? I'm thinking about like a road like Gilbert Avenue that you all granted some funding for, where the city of Cincinnati is going to be performing a road diet, and it's the same width of pavement, but it is adding another mode.
Yeah, I think if the pavement's already there and it's simple resurfacing, that makes sense to do that. As far as the additional, I don't know. We'd have to discuss that.
And then Alan, I don't have a last name, said the resurfacing program will be extremely helpful. There aren't currently a lot of grant funding options for resurfacing. So that's more of a comment than a question. Sam Perry, to continue with Rob's concern, I would, hold on, where'd my mouse go? To continue with Rob's concern, I would recommend hosting project delivery best practice workshops. We have similar issues in Ohio. There are always tips and tricks to learn from each other on how to keep things moving. I don't think we currently do this at all.
Good
And
comments.
then,
Hang on, Summer. That's a good comment. We have had ODOT staff and KYTC staff in the past, but it's not been a while. Maybe it's probably been more than a year. So we can have some more elements of those types of topics included in our ICC agendas. Good idea.
Dane Blackburn at KYTC, with regards to LPA projects, TA and STBG mainly, would it be helpful if schedules were more realistic on the front end? It seems a lot of the schedules we see on the applications are extremely ambitious.
Another good comment. I can't really weigh in on that, but yeah, we're hopeful. The other thing seems to me that happens is we tell people that their funds are for 3 years out, and so they don't really hit the ground running, and all of a sudden they realize, oh, it's going to take a year and a half for utility relocation. It's going to take a year for environmental. They didn't think about that sort of thing. So yeah, in that case, that is on the LPA for not engaging more quickly and getting their projects started. Or in other situations, they apply to OKI and they say they have the match, but then they don't have the match. And then scope changes or inflation hits. And even though we try to consider inflation, they find themselves halfway through a project development process and they're running out of money, or they're running out of political support, or whatever the situation is. And then they go try to find another funding source, and the timing of those sources don't match up. So they ask us if we can delay our project, delay the project, and it's all kind of things going on. So, sorry for my commentary. Go ahead, Summer.
Daniel Menetry, why are collector roads receiving more points than arterials?
Well, my thought was, and I'm open to change on this, that the costs would be more in line with the program funds that we have available. This is not meant to take the place of large projects. They're meant to sort of hit that really needed project, and I thought the best way to do that would be middle of the road type projects.
And I think Lauren O'Brien has her hand up. Lauren, do you have some questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for this pilot resurfacing program. Would this be a program that is simply construction, not design? So like how Wade was saying, if there's already a bike path, it probably has been done recently because most bike paths have been done. So if it's a road with a bike path, I feel like it won't really need resurfacing. But these other older roads that need resurfacing, is this just going to be no design? Because I feel like adding a bike path is a design situation where you would need like an engineer to come in. And so is this meant to just be fix the road that's falling apart instead of reconfiguring the road? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that was my thought. And that the staff, we want to get some quick hits, some easy wins, reduce that carryover, get projects moving more quickly. If this pilot becomes permanent, then communities can begin to do that design for ahead of time and come to us with just, milling, filling, pavement markings, maintenance of traffic and construction. I don't want to get into that game of design because we already know that that's design and environmental, and utilities can be a challenge at times. So that's my thought on it. But this is your committee, and those are the conversations I like to continue having.
Bob, that's all I see in the chat for right now.
Well, I
Okay.
know too, just that on the mill concept, folks kind of on the Ohio side of the equation, I know we would have to work closely with our county engineer and potentially ODOT to kind of coordinate as smaller communities. So it provide some opportunities perhaps for communities that haven't been able to come to the fore. I guess the issue that I would worry about mostly, especially in Ohio, looking at if the county engineer is applying and he's limited to one or two applications, it then becomes downstreaming to some smaller jurisdiction to have to pick up the application, which could be problematic. I think if we're restricting to jurisdiction, perhaps there's maybe the more finite jurisdictional limit within a jurisdiction. Just throw that out. I'd hate to see a small township get frozen out that needs a resurfacing that the county's kind of said, I don't have any money for, and then that is their only allocated project, and then some of the other they're kind of pitting one jurisdiction against another, and that clearly gets in Ohio gets or in Hamilton County would get thrown to our county engineer. I know that we've got a great working relationship with him, but it could create some have and have not situations, and just kind of looking at that might be something worth consideration. So
yeah, that's a good point. I mean consider, let's say you're a Hamilton County engineer and 8 Mile Road or Nordyke Road, I know that's a county route because I used to live on it. It's probably 4 miles long. If the county engineer had, in their cycle that they were doing eastern part of the county, I get that mobilization and all that. If that was just one of several in that area that they were going to do in that cycle, this could potentially save them $800,000. And smaller communities don't have a lot of functionally classified routes. I know that. However, it would still benefit their citizens. You know, all the folks living near Nordyke Road would benefit from an improved 8-mile road kind of thing, if you get my drift.
Yeah, I think Eric's looking to respond maybe.
Yeah. Hi, Eric.
Good morning, Eric Beck, Hamilton County Engineer. No, this program sounds great for what it is. It's just a mill and fill. It would greatly benefit. I know that the Ohio County Engineers, it would definitely benefit their systems. And as far as going down to the township roads, Adam, I think on that, I think what Rob's saying is Bob's saying is correct. Is that the classification's probably not there.
Well, if I could clarify real quickly, what I was suggesting is you've got county roads in multiple jurisdictions. So if you do a county road in Anderson, and that is your one allowable project, you could not then do one in Greene. And you would have multiple jurisdictions that would be vying. So that would force Greene to apply for a county road resurfacing, which we could do because we could identify a road that would be viable. We have the horsepower to be able to pursue it as an LPA with your cooperation. But then I look at a smaller township, perhaps, let's say Miami Township, that might not have the horsepower behind the LPA. They would have a county road in need of being resurfaced, but the county's resurfacing allocation of projects would be dedicated to one on the east side of town. So it's when we limit an LPA to a certain number of project submissions, the question is that the LPA itself, which would mean the county would have one, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, one project per LPA. So that would mean if the county is allowed to do one road for $800,000 in the entire county.
That's how I have it, but that's certainly, I throw that out there as a discussion starting point.
Yeah,
so, I mean, if you all think it might be worth expanding that number to 2 or 3 or 24, whatever number you want.
I'm just pointing it out as an issue that one of the concerns that I've expressed in the past is smaller communities. It's getting harder and harder for them to navigate this process, especially on the ODOT side. No offense to my colleagues and friends in ODOT, but at the same, so there are going to be communities, especially ones that fall under the umbrella of the county engineers in Ohio, that don't have necessarily the horsepower to manage projects as a quote unquote LPA and or apply for them. And this could be a great opportunity for communities that don't have that horsepower to get a little additional funded cycle to them, but it's going to be strictly at the kind of the largesse of the county engineer in that jurisdiction. So I'm just throwing it out there. I think it's a phenomenal program, and I think it would do a lot to jumpstart some projects. It's just, you know, there could be bad administration and good administrations. I happen to believe that our county engineer would do a fine job allocating funds if he was given a little bit more bandwidth. You know, and I think I think most folks in my position would say the same thing about their county engineer, especially in Ohio. And I think it may be giving them a little bit of bandwidth, but I'd hate to see them do be allocated 4 projects in the community and let them do 4 projects in Greene just because I'm a nice guy and I think Eric's a great guy. I mean, that would certainly not be what I think the intent of this project would be. I think the intent would be to allow him to distribute those multiple projects over multiple jurisdictions. Just throwing that out. So.
Bob, Daniel Menetry is asking, what about applying for a grouping of streets for repaving?
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, how do we have a competitive process with that? Because if each one of those routes may have a different PCR, each route may be a different functional class, each will have a different ADT. I'm not against it. I understand that makes a lot of sense. I'm just not sure how to have a competitive process for that. I would be certainly open to trying to put something like that together if I could get some input from you all.
And why I would just like to point out that this is a pilot program that, we have to start small and we have to start somewhere. And then we can build upon that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I think Jeremy Evans has his hand held up.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say real quick, Bob, I think it looks like a great program. Of course, I didn't have these details when we talked, but I think we could put it to good use. I agree with a lot of what Eric was saying too. I might have missed if there is a local match, which I assume there would be, to the discussion about the townships or whoever applying for these county routes. I don't know any of our townships who would be willing to put up 20% local match to pave one of our county roads. We would certainly appreciate it. But anyways, I think that kind of, might answer itself. But and
Jeremy,
as far as the number, go ahead.
You may have missed it earlier. In Ohio, we have toll revenue credits that we are planning to bring to bear to this program. So it would be no local match required.
Perfect. That's even better.
Yeah.
As far as the number of projects, I mean, we could have paved roads all day. So if it's more than one, that's great. Although I wonder, would fear maybe if it gets too high that some of the smaller counties may not have projects that are as competitive ADT wise with some of the bigger counties. So if you increase it from one, maybe keep it kind of low for this pilot program to 2 or 3, just, to keep it competitive across the region. That'd be my suggestion.
We could open it up to 2 or 3 and then just see how the scores come out. And we don't necessarily have to go with the score. It's just a tool we use for the decision makers to be able to understand, really, is this project have benefits? And there are some things we simply can't measure, and we recognize that, but we use the scoring process to put a marker out there so we know at least they're close together in terms of quality. So, okay, what I'm hearing is maybe we expand the number of projects from 1 to maybe 2 or 3. Does that sound accurate?
That sounds good to me. And then real quick, if you wanted to consider grouping projects or grouping roads into one, maybe look at averages or something for PCR, ADT, and that might be a way to handle that. So whether it's 3 separate or we can group them, however you want to proceed, we'll certainly be willing to take advantage. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Dan Corey has his hand raised.
Maybe figure out how to do a weighted average of some sort.
Bob, this is Dan Corey. Just maybe an idea of the way to weight or scale the number of applications you could put in is the entity submits, and you have a ranking. Like if you deal with 100 lane miles in federal, you get so many applications. If we have 200, you get so many. To kind of weight it on the amount of road miles you maintain gives you qualifications to submit more applications.
Okay, we'll look into that. Sounds like it could be a possibility. Summer, thanks for watching over those chats. Anything else?
No, Eric Beck and both Sam Perry said that they have plenty to pave and that they can get them out quickly. So it sounds like they're on board.
Yeah, thank you. That's what we were hoping to achieve with this program. A, they're useful. B, they can move quickly. Carry over can get reduced. We can begin to have a reservoir for projects that slip. We can insert these for the next paving cycle, that kind of thing. Okay. 800,000 per project. How does that sound? I'm thinking simple mill fill and stuff might be about 100,000 per lane mile. I don't know if that's, you guys know better than me, but I did have some data that I processed to come up with that guesstimate.
I think we're around 100 to 125, depending on the road width. So yeah, I think that's good, at least for us.
Okay.
Bob, Wade Johnston is asking how toll credits are currently spent. If you could go over a little bit about those.
Okay. First of all, what is toll credit? Toll credit is when the state of Ohio maintains a toll facility with state funds, they earn what is called a toll revenue credit. The federal USD then allows them to use those credits on other federal projects and reduce the amount of match required. What it does, however, requires the entire project to use 100% federal funds. And on your end, that sounds good. On our end, it reduces the amount, the distance, the breadth of the projects we can fund. So typically for $10 million worth of projects that you all apply for, we would have $8 million in federal funds, and the other $2 million comes from you all as match. So this would burn through our federal allocation more rapidly, but we have accumulated, we have carryover on those as well, so to speak. And this is a huge number. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we have plenty that are allocated to us. Right now, we're using it to fund planning projects that we use SDBG funding for. It's a very small amount because our goal really is to get all those funds out for projects in your communities. But we do have some activities at OKI that we use a little bit of that for, so that reduces the burden on OKI. Those are 100% funded. Other than that, we've struggled with, in this recent carbon reduction program, the EV stations, we did deploy toll credits for that program as well. So it helps the communities avoid having to come up with match. And we've struggled in the past on how to make better use of those in our Ohio communities. And this seems like a perfect fit. So.
Hey, Bob, this is Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a pool of about 26 million in toll revenue credits to draw on. So it's a pretty large number.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so right now, you guys can continue to send comments or bring them next month regarding if the size of the program is good, if the scope is good, 800,000 is good. It seems we probably might like to move to a larger number of applications per LPA, maybe come up with a way to have a group of projects and how to weight them, how many per LPA type and size was a topic as well. Okay, well, we got something to work with. Any more comments on that? Okay, so there's much more to go. We're on slide 14. Regina, you want to move us down to the next slide, please? Okay, additional changes. All right, next, please. Okay, so this is our annual process. You've seen it many times. Basically, we have all the different modes, and then we have the planning factors. They come together and we add them, and you have a total number of points. Next, please. Here is a list of all those factors for both SDBG and CMAQ. They're the same. Not exactly the same for TA, but since we're talking about SDBG right now, and Those in yellow are new, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. Give you a second to let those sink in. I'm not really going to talk about them much. I'll hit the ones that we have potential changes to as we come. So go forward. Okay, next slide, please, Regina. Okay, so here are proposed changes to modal factors. First for roadway, they involve safety and freight. We found it necessary to remove property damage only from the safety cost of excessive crashes. We verified from our state partners that underreporting is really kind of messing the crash rates and the value of excessive crashes. So we're going to jettison that from the calculation and include just injuries and fatalities. We made a review of the, or undertook a review of the truck percentages on our roads, and we modified the table a little bit. Same process, just a refinement. Turns out it's not a lot different, but I'm glad we were able to verify that we were in the ballpark and these are the most current. So that's a change there. Next, please. Continuing with roadway, striking a phrase from the status of project just to say construction and right-of-way plans complete. Existing conditions. This is the change. We've used IRI for years, and at the time that was the federal process. That's kind of shifted a little bit, and now the FHWA schema will be followed and includes use of pavement condition ratings, 5, 3, and 0. The upside is that it's more widely used by our state partners, so we'll have the data for more routes, which is a good thing. Same follows with bridge, 530, sufficiency rating using the Federal Highway Administration schema. Next, please. Proposed modal factors for bike ped. OKI is a regional agency, and we want to emphasize regional networks for bike ped as well. This change is a cleanup, as you see here, and a change. We'll also add drop-down menus in the application, so it's clear which facilities are regional networks. You won't have to go to the appendix when you're doing the application. Just have to check a box. We have a list of what the regional network trails are and which ones are not, or not which ones are not, but which ones are. And then connections to those will be self-evident once you know which ones are the regional components. And we're dropping out the local network component. Not that we think that they're bad things, but we're giving weight to the regional nature of the trails system. And like roadway, dropping out the /OR from the right-of-way plans, status of project. There's a hand up. Go ahead.
Hey, Bob, general account, Boone County Planning Commission. Just curious, you had mentioned that you have a list of those in the regional network. Is that list available somewhere for us to review, or a way to better understand whether or not we are linking our local network to that regional network?
Yeah, they're in the guidance document. Summer can shoot you over the list, or we can send it out to the entire group.
Yeah, they are in the guidance document. Sorry, Bob, I didn't mean to cut you off. And we had talked about in the next round of applications, there would be a drop-down menu. So you could choose. So if it is a regional network component, you would have to choose. So then they would be listed right there as well.
Okay. It seems, I feel like maybe there could be some points associated with local networks if it's, you know, kind of in the process of getting to that regional network. Particularly for some of those areas, you know, Boone County is a good example of getting linked into that regional network at this time is a little more challenging for us. But I don't think that should necessarily take away from a lot of the work that's being done to create those networks here. just my thoughts.
Okay, right now, and Summer will correct me when I miss something, but we have things like Wasson Way and Little Miami Scenic Trail, Great Miami Trail, Riverfront Commons, Mill Creek. Summer, what else is in there?
Did you say the Great Miami River Trail, Little Miami River Trail, Ohio River Trail?
Ohio River Trail, thank you, missed that one. Okay, anyway, they're in there. If there are other regional trails that we may have missed, I don't want to, the point is to emphasize regional connections and then connections to those regional networks, as opposed to, you know, something on Silver Street or something, you know, wherever Silver Street is. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you, Jenna. Non-roadway freight. Okay, so we have a couple of new things here. These are, we learned some things when we did the, I say we, Robin Bancroft did the update to the OKI freight plan just a little bit ago. And we found some things that we could do better in this process to reflect some things we learned there. OKI freight plan, make it more consistent with the other modes, reducing the impact on roadway congestion score is one way we could free up some scores to add a couple of these new elements. So reducing that from 20 to 10, and then adding a new impact on safety like the other modes have. Next slide, please. Adding time and again, when freight projects come before us, they tout community impacts. Robin referred to it as quality of life. Maybe community impacts might be another way to coin that. But noise, light, dust, other nuisances, trash, whatever it might be, add that in as a new modal factor for non-roadway freight. Albeit we don't get a lot of projects in this category, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't make it, try to improve it. And then reliability, change the score to 5, 3, and 0 as above. Status of project, same impacts or same changes as with the other modes, / or being removed. So any questions on this? Kind of like the proposals, make it more uniform across the board. All right, next please. Okay, moving on to the planning factors. And this one, the first bullet there is air quality, Appendix B. The proposal is to add an alternative fuel infrastructure, and that can only be added for CMAQ projects because STBG and TA, that's not an eligible activity. So I don't think that's an issue, but it is just for CMAQ. And then for intermodal connections, thought to simplify it and help people to understand what we're getting at here is, you know, new direct connections between the various modes you see there. We'll add a check box to the application to make it more straightforward. Next, please. Technology, there was a suggestion during our last conversation about all this that it needs to be refined. We made this proposal to include those refinements. Basically, the top of the line for signal systems, we think is adaptive systems with detection, and then it goes down to the other elements, as you see, to 5 or more signals without detection, but they're connected. So there's a range of opportunities there for signal systems. Those that are more advanced and more regional, more systematic, more system level would score higher points. And then the history of project delivery, we've talked about that before, but I wanted to make sure that it got in front of you again. Okay, next slide, please. Continuing on with the planning factors, this coming Thursday, Travis and the land use will be meeting with the Land Use Commission. We don't anticipate any changes to SRPP, but just in case, if there are any that impact our scoring process, we'll bring them to you as soon as we can. And then local plans, proposal is to add the OKI freight plan as an acceptable plan if the project is specifically included in the freight plan. So I think that's a logical extension of local plans, and hope you concur with that. Resiliency, a new factor. Resiliency is a big topic at USDOT, and we're getting encouragement, if you will, to include some kind of resiliency in our planning process. And, you know, a lot of things can impact design and maintenance of infrastructure. In reading the literature, specifically ODOT's climate, their plans to address climate change, they feel like design considerations for pavement and other infrastructure will be an evolutionary type thing, and they will be able to accommodate those design features and material features as time goes on. It's not something they have to do on day one. They will evolve their design techniques and their construction techniques and so on and so forth. What seems to be at the front of all this, at least in our minds, is landslides and flooding, stormwater management and landslide prevention. So that's going to be the backbone under our proposal for the resiliency factor. So talk about that in the next couple of slides. Next, please. Okay, to start the conversation on resiliency, we ask ourselves a question: is the project within a federal flood risk management standard floodplain, or within an area identified as being susceptible for landslide activity? So if the answer is yes, you see the opportunity for 5, 3, and -5 points. If the project is within the floodplain and the improvement elevates it above the 500-year floodplain elevation, it would be eligible for 5 points. If the project is an area with landslide susceptibility index, 1 to 3 in this case, and is designed to withstand slippage and or protect an area from further slippage, it would also earn 5 points. So we know floodplains and landslides aren't throughout the region, so there'll be opportunities on the next slide. I'll show you that. But if it is, then you can score points. 5, as I just stated. 3, if it's in the floodplain and you design it to withstand flooding event or armor it against a flooding event. If it's a landslide situation and the design allows it to withstand slippage and or protect it from further slippage, then it would earn 3 points. And then -5 points if it's in the floodplain and you don't do anything to raise it out of that floodplain or armor it to sustain a flooding event. So we realize you can't raise something, all projects in all areas, out of the floodplain, but if you can armor it so that we don't keep investing funds to fix whenever there's a flood again. So anyway, those are the proposals. I think you need to, if you haven't already, take some time to examine that, and we'll get your thoughts on that as we go forward, either today or next month. And I apologize for all the words on the slide. I know it's like, whoa, what's going on here? And more about those 2 topics here. So the last slide was, if the answer was yes, this slide is the same question, and if the answer is no. So if the answer is no, your project could include nature-based solutions. Regina, next slide, please. Your project could include nature-based solution strategies beyond the state or local compliance requirements. Okay, this
It looks like there's a question.
Okay,
Wade Johnston.
Bob, I
finish
just had a
this
quick
slide.
question on this. You know, oftentimes there are trails that are planned for to be next to a river that is oftentimes in the floodway, and I wonder if you would maybe think through that for regional trails. I wouldn't want to create a disadvantage of -5 points for a trail project when you know, that is one of the few uses of the floodplain that, you know, that we have lots of examples of where those are built and maintained, and it, you know, it's not often, you know, they're not put in the 500-year floodplain or built out of the 500-year floodplain, but you know, it's a way to use that space and activate it.
Yeah, I understand. I would appreciate the committee's thoughts on that. There could be perhaps an exception, and yeah, I'm not going to be the sole arbiter on that. I think that's a good point. Okay, let me finish this slide. Again, this is if the answer is no, you can earn 5 points if you deploy a nature-based solution above and beyond what is basically required. You could also earn 5 points if you address a specific need that was identified in a county hazard mitigation plan. So this all ties back to work that you've already done and you know needs to be addressed, and if your project proposal includes that. And one way that we'll be checking to see whether it includes that is, does the budget include elements in there that address the landslide or the hazard mitigation or the floodplain issue. Here are the two resources, and this will be included in the guidance document. Talks about how you identify the floodplain. There's a website and areas that are in the U.S. landslide inventory. So questions about this probably need Travis to weigh in, but I did see a hand come up and then it disappeared. Summer, do you have anything in the chat?
Bob.
No, go ahead.
That was me. Sorry, it was an accident.
Oh, okay, so you have nothing. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I just referenced the guidance document. We're getting some DOT emphasis for a conflict of interest. We'll just add that to the guidance document. 23 CFR 1. Has to do with consulting firms who may work for a municipality and whether or not they can bid on projects that municipality may put out for bid. And I can't recite that specifically, but it's related to that kind of thing. It doesn't eliminate their possibility to do so, but it makes sure that the public interest is maintained. And then other revisions to reflect the changes that we noted as we went through this discussion. Next slide, please. Okay. So following the discussions last cycle, here are some topics that were brought up in that follow-up meeting. And I think part of the reason why we started basically a month earlier was so that we could have some more in-depth conversations about scoring, give more lead time, continue our desire to be a transparent process. Sometimes, and we appreciate the support we get, our integrity, our drive to be perfect has never wavered, but sometimes we forget that we have changeover in people from our agencies, and they may not have heard that or may not be familiar with it. I get all that, and we need to do better on that. So that's part of the reason we're having sort of a kind of a long meeting here today to cover some of those topics. At that meeting, there was also a thought that maybe a separate committee to score local planning should be set up. We don't recommend that. We don't think it's necessary. We don't think it's practical. The factors in that are all objective measures, so I think we've got it covered. There was a thought that we should carve out money for repaving projects. Well, we've kind of talked about that today with the pilot program. Reevaluate how maintenance projects score in EJ. Well, we let the EJ do their work how they see fit, so they can determine that. Refinements to signal scores. We did address that in the technology element. Emphasis on EJ. EJ has too much weight. I don't think we're going to back out of where we're at now, because federal law requires, has those emphasis areas, and so we don't recommend change there. And I already mentioned technology, so I won't repeat that. So I think that's the last of the changes or the conversation. Now, next slide, I want to go to the schedule of activities. So here we are today on the 7th of January, 2025. Next, or 2 days from now, the Land Use Committee will meet following the board meeting and perhaps talk about any SRPP changes there that may impact our scoring process. They may have changes that don't impact us, so whatever happens, we'll pivot if we need to. In February, we'll request concurrence from you all, and then we'll, if we get that, we'll take that to the board on Thursday. It'll probably be a much shorter presentation to them because they rely on you to go through all the details of this. Then we'll go through the process of preparing an updated application guidance document, have the workshop in March, and that will kick off the call for projects. Projects will be due on June the 6th, first Friday in June, which has been our custom for the last several years. Once we get those in and we're able to clean them up so that they all have the same look and feel, probably not include all the attachments, just the necessary stuff with the applications and a project map. We'll send a link out to everyone. They can look, they can review, they can be prepared for conversations. We do that with the EJ committee, and so you'll get the same thing they get. And then we'll meet with the prioritization committee in September, and then you guys will have a crack at the recommended list in October, and hopefully the board will follow your recommendation and adopt those in October. So that's the sort of the, not sort of, but that is the schedule of activities to come. That's all I have. Questions? Jenna.
Hey, Bob, thanks. I appreciate the schedule of activities and really appreciate the full ICC going to have the opportunity to review those applications and have a better understanding when we do go in and make our votes. I'm wondering if we can back up one slide very quickly, just a clarifying question about the bullet there on reevaluating how maintenance projects are scored in EJ. It was my understanding that the question of points awarded on maintenance was not actually within the EJ component. Did I misunderstand that? I thought that there was some conversation about maintenance projects, that category. It was not in EJ though.
Actually, I think it might have been both, but I do recall now that you say that. I think the question was having to do with SRPP, and Travis reminded us that that was a major emphasis in the SRPP is to maintain what we have. So any maintenance projects would score a 5 there.
Yeah, and I think that maybe could be worth some more discussion, whether it's here, now or next meeting or between the meetings. But I think that the kind of want for discussion was not around that EJ component. I think it was that SRPP component, and just some maybe better understanding of that 5 points, because I don't know that that's still a want, at least that I've heard from others on ICC, that such a heavy focus on maintenance versus maybe stronger network connections, that kind of thing, over maintenance. I don't know if it's just worthy of some more discussion.
Just to clarify, Bob.
Yeah. Travis?
Yeah, I was making sure my microphone was turned on. The 5 point is not SRPP, it's related to SRPP, but it's in the local plan. So the local plan score is where we're evaluating local comprehensive plans. So the automatic 5 is given to a maintenance project because it's maintaining the system, as you said, and that's more tied to the long range plan goal and federal highway goals to maintain what we have and maintain the system. So the logic was to not penalize those projects if it's not consistent with the comp plan. Comp plans are looking at more new facilities or added capacity to existing facility, changing things, and is that consistent with the future plan? Maintenance is just maintaining the facility. So that's where the automatic 5 points comes in. Local planning will certainly be discussed with the Land Use Commission on Thursday, so we'll be sure to continue the conversation there. But just wanted to clarify where it was and what the context of it is.
Thanks, Travis. I appreciate that explanation.
Sorry, Jen, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're
This is
okay.
Summer at OKI. Adam, I think it was you who brought this up at the second meeting after ICC. I believe I have that you brought up about EJ scoring maintenance projects. You thought that they scored them too high. Am I incorrect on that?
Well, it was. I think it related just to discussions about what you have to do under federal ADA laws, and trying to get points for doing what you have to do. And as Bob I think alluded to, the EJ committee does a pretty good job of self regulating, as it were, evaluation. And I think it was a more in common or in a passing comment more so than a kind of a trying to create a groundswell for change. So,
Travis, if I could maybe bring up this point. Under all the modes, the modal factors include existing conditions. So maybe we could move away from that from the local planning perspective. I don't know. And just let it lie on its own. The local planning is included or referenced in the current comp plan, consistent with the current comp plan. Perhaps maybe there's some wiggle room there. I don't know. Sure. There's a couple other elements of that. Okay, we'll look at that in the interim. Okay, Mr. Chair, I don't have any other items to discuss on that.
Well, you've covered a lot of ground, Bob, and thanks for the follow-up on our discussions of the last meeting. So obviously you've given us a lot of bandwidth to consider some of the comments that were made previously, and I know you continue to engage with our members throughout the next short month. So with that, I think we'll move on to some business. We have Bob's going to stay up for present a resolution on the Boone County Transportation Plan update. We will need a recommendation to approve as well as a vote. So with that, Bob, we'll move it on to you.
Yes, thank you. This is on behalf of Robin Bancroft. She will be the project manager for an update to the Boone County Transportation Plan. OKI acquired some PL funds out of Frankfurt, and not our regular PL funds, our discretionary, to provide for an update to that plan. Boone County Fiscal Court is providing about $55,000 out of the total project cost of approximately $135,000. So we will assist them. There was a request for qualifications, and what the resolution 2025-01 will do is authorize us to enter into a contract with that consultant to conduct the plan update.
All right. With that, are any questions? Seeing none, I will call for a motion to endorse. I have a motion from Corey and a second. And second from Jenna. And so call for the vote. All in favor of the amendment? And wait a moment for that to register. And I believe that we're getting there. I'm seeing my ticker go. So we're getting our hands up, and like sign those who might be opposed. I'm going to say that it carries. If Regina can confirm that, that would be great, and I can move on to the next item on our agenda.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. We want to introduce Jenny Newcomb, OKI staff, to present information on Title VI program update, and we will have a motion and a recommended resolution 20-2502, which will be recommendation to the board of directors. So, with that, Jenny, you are free to start.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jenny Newcomb. If you don't know me, I'm the digital media specialist here at OKI. As you guys probably know, Florence Parker, our public involvement specialist, is retired, so I've taken over her tasks related to Title II. So I'm just going to present our program and ask for a recommendation for a resolution to our board of directors. We update this document every year for KYTC and every 3 years for the FTA. You're probably all familiar with it, so I won't, with Title VI, so I won't talk about it too much. But since we receive federal funding, we can't exclude, deny, or discriminate against any individual on the grounds of race, color, sex, or national origin. So some examples of how we comply with Title VI. Our EJ committee, as we just talked about, scores applications to ensure environmental justice communities receive equal measure. All of our contracts contain Title VI provisions. We offer translation services for any of our documents. All meetings are accessible for those with less mobility, and additionally, we offer to meet all reasonable accommodations for meetings and committees. We ensure efforts are made so women and minority-owned businesses are considered for contracts. And we also administer the 5310 program in the region, which, as you know, helps with mobility of people with disabilities and seniors. So the plan is posted on our website. After this is approved, I will post the new one. People are free to make complaints. We have one in English and Spanish. We have not received a complaint in many years, as far as I know, but so go to our website and look at our whole the whole document if you want. So yeah, any questions? No. Okay. So I guess now I'll request a vote to recommend the board adopt. Oh wait, that's you? Sorry.
Right. We will go ahead and seek a motion to adopt the resolution to update the 2020. I'm sorry, to update to the board of directors the Title VI program update. All right, we have a motion. I guess we have Matthew Helm, and we have a second and a second. We've got Debbie Conrad as a second. So we have a motion and a second, so we will go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your virtual hand. And I think we're probably registering those votes now, and we would also then additionally call for a nay vote. And if any of those would like to register, they may do so. And again, I'm going to preempt Regina, but I'm going to say we got a positive vote on that, and we'll move on.
Yes, we're good to go. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Now we're going to move on to our favorite portion of our meeting. As I always like to say, Andy Reeser will provide us with administrative modification and an amendment. So we're going to start out with administrative modification number 15. Followed then by an amendment number 12, and there will be votes on each one of those. And so, Mr. Reeser, you're up.
All right. Well, the TIP administrative modification today includes minor funding and timing changes to 27 highway projects and 6 transit projects. The project tables were in your agenda packet as well as shown on the screen here. Detailed design funding amounts and the construction year were updated for the Western Hills Viaduct Replacement Project. The construction phase for the Plainfield Road Reconstruction and Intersection Improvements Project in the Village of Silverton was moved from FY25 to FY26. In Kentucky, almost all the changes are a continuation of TIP cleanup efforts to carry forward all phases without federal authorization from FY24 to FY25. The one exception is the Bellevue Van Vost Bridge, where we added the additional TA funds awarded during the 2024 prioritization process. Next slide, please. In Dearborn County, Indiana, the modification adds 5 NDOT small structure replacement projects to an existing group project. For transit, funding is modified for streetcar rail preventative maintenance and changes a PID number of the headway management planning project for the streetcar. 4 sorted changes involve OKI funds, moving the Uptown Smart Hub and North College Hill Transit Center projects from FY25 to FY26. Revising the description and local funding amount for a bus replacement project, and moving the Sort of Bond Hill garage renovation from FY26 to FY27. Any questions on TIP modification number 15?
All right, seeing none, I will call for a motion to adopt administrative modification number 15. And I have a motion and I need a second. Second, Mr. Beck. Motion and a second, call for a vote. All in favor? Let those register here. And now I will call for a similar virtual hand raise for any opposition to the amendment or modification, I should say. And seeing none or very few, I'm assuming again that we pass the resolution.
Yes. Thank you.
Very good. All right. And then we're going to move on to amendment number 12 of the 24-27 TIP. Andy Reeser again.
Yep. So resolution 2025-03 is TIP amendment number 12. You may recall that back in October, the board approved new funding awards for EV charging projects in Ohio, utilizing OKI carbon reduction funds. This amendment adds 8 EV charging awards to the TIP in Butler County, 2 EV charging awards in Claremont County, and 8 awards in Hamilton County. In addition to the EV charging, the amendment consolidates 2 OKI awards for the Buxton Corridor Improvement Project into one project. Next slide, please. It also adds a project program with OKI TA funds to begin new sidewalk installation in the city of Loveland. 2 changes to projects related to the Brent Spence Bridge corridor work. PID 113361 is I-75 from the Lynn Street overpass to the bridge over Finley Street. The amendment adds a right-of-way phase, moves construction from FY28 to FY30, and adds the recent OKI award to the city for bike ped improvements along the Ezra Charles Bridge crossing. Next slide, please. PID 16, you can go back one, I'm sorry. There we go. PID 116649 is the primary Brent Bridge project in the TIP. It revises funding and adds right-of-way authority for building demolition and utility relocation. Even though it is managed by ODOT, much of the work for the Brent Spence corridor is in Kentucky, and it is important to note that KYTC is using a mix of federal and state dollars to reimburse Ohio. The right-of-way phase for this PID went from $28 million to $135 million. Next project is moving up to I-75 to phase 8C of the Mill Creek Expressway project. The construction phase increased from $63 million to $77 million. And over in Kentucky, Boone County is turning down OKI's previous award for the installation of EV chargers. They requested we delete that from the TIP. Also in Boone County, the county was awarded a federal discretionary grant, a raised grant, to begin design on reconstructing Limeberg to CVG. And adding the Hanger Row access road from Limeberg to CVG, I should say. The second Boone County federal grant was a Safe Streets for All grant for safety improvements along Camp Ernst Road, Hicks Pike, Long Branch Road, Rogers Lane, and Linton Lane. Next slide. On the transit side, this amendment includes the addition of 7 projects, 2 for the Cincinnati streetcar for headway management and real-time arrival integration, 4 sorter projects for new vehicles, paratransit equipment and operations, and 1 project for tank for bus replacements. 3 of the highway projects in this amendment are considered non-exempt for air quality conformity, which means that we are required to address their required air quality impacts. They were previously analyzed, and we have addressed the air quality impacts to the satisfaction of our interagency consultation group. In addition, the amendment was posted on OKI's website for public comment since December 19th, and no public comments were received. Any questions on this amendment?
Seeing no questions, I will request a motion, and Todd Listerman motion and a second Sam Perry. So I have a motion and a second. Call for a vote to move to recommend approval resolution 25-03 to the board of directors. All in favor, please raise your virtual hands. Thank you. And any opposed? Again, making the assumption that we pass the resolution. And Regina or Summer, whoever's tabulating.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, well, that conducts our main business. So have the announcement. The annual OKI luncheon will be held January 28th at Turfway Park again. Encourage everybody to turn up. It's a great venue and a great event. And for more information, Lori Platt, as always, is our contact at OKI. So at this junction, open the forum up to additional comments, if there are any. And I guess we got Wade.
Sorry, I know we've got a long meeting. Just wanted to make a quick announcement that Tri-State Trails is hosting our annual trail report out on January 24th. It's a Zoom meeting. I'll put a link in the chat here. A lot of these projects have been funded by OKI, and it's really focusing on trails that were built in 2024 or are coming in 2025, just to share all the good progress that's happening. So here's an invitation. If your community is delivered a project last year or is going to be delivering one this year, and you want to do a quick update, like a 3-minute update, send me a message and we can see if we can include you. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Any other announcements from our body? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public comments. I know there are a few folks out watching us on the World Wide Web. Seeing none, I will entertain. Our next meeting, weather permitting, will be February 11th at our regular location at OKI, and that will be at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And with that, I will seek a motion to adjourn. Got a motion, Eric Beck, and a second, Eric Beck? No, I'm just kidding. So we have a second. We have a second. And I said Wade Johnson. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Thank you much. Unless anybody wants to stick around, which I'm sure staff will be more than willing to do. All right. Everybody have a great day. Enjoy your meeting and hope to see you all on January 28th at Turfway and at our next meeting in February. Thank you all.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Bye.